The early days of 2026 didn't arrive with the usual sense of New Year's optimism. Instead, they brought a cold, sharp wind that seemed to rattle the very foundations of the Montecito mansion. While most of the world was still recovering from holiday celebrations, a single digital spark was about to ignite an inferno that threatened to consume the British monarchy's most controversial branch. Picture a rain-slicked pavement in Los Angeles just outside a hotel so exclusive it doesn't even carry a name on its heavy brass doors. It's the kind of place where privacy isn't just a luxury, it's the primary product. A woman, her face partially obscured by a cascading designer scarf and oversized glasses, slips through a side entrance with practiced urgency. Exactly 10 minutes later, a powerful familiar figure follows her path. This wasn't a scene from a scripted Hollywood thriller, though it certainly looked like one. It was the beginning of what many are calling the real-life collapse of the Sussex dream. As those grainy paparazzi images began to flood the internet, a chilling question echoed from the rainy streets of London to the sun-drenched hills of California. Why was the Duchess meeting this man alone while her husband was nowhere to be found? The man was Markus Anderson, the influential architect of the Soho House empire and a figure who has haunted the periphery of Meghan's life for over a decade. But the true shock didn't lie in the meeting itself. It lay in the timing. This rendezvous took place just hours after a notorious journalist had promised to reveal a dark secret that reportedly predated the royal wedding and continued long after the vows were spoken. While the internet was busy dissecting the body language in those photos, a more terrifying detail emerged. Prince Harry, the man who had famously vowed to move heaven and earth to shield his wife from the vultures of the press, had vanished into a terrifying, icy silence. There were no defensive statements from their legal team, no angry lawsuits, and no sources close to the couple leaking supportive stories to the press. There was just a void where a husband's protection should have been. Whispers began to circulate that while Meghan was in that hotel lobby, Harry was on a secret, desperate flight to Toronto searching for a truth he hoped never existed. Was he looking for a way to save his family, or was he searching for the final reason to let it all go? To understand the weight of this moment, we have to look back at how the fuse was lit. It started with a single razor-sharp statement on social media that shook the core of the international community. The source was Piers Morgan, a journalist whose name has become synonymous with a relentless pursuit of the Duchess of Sussex. But this time, the tone was different. There was no immediate shouting, no lengthy television segment filled with fiery rhetoric. Instead, there was a calculated, icy promise. Morgan posted just a few short lines to his personal account claiming to be in possession of evidence involving a dark secret between Meghan and Markus Anderson. The sting of the message lay in its precision. He didn't merely suggest a past indiscretion. He emphasized that this matter may have continued even after she was wearing the wedding ring of a British prince. He ended the post with a phrase that acted like a slow-burning fuse. Just wait a little longer. The truth is about to be exposed. Within less than 30 minutes, the digital world exploded. The post garnered over 1 million views in that tiny window, a testament to the global fascination and perhaps exhaustion with the Sussex saga. Every royal fan group and critic rushed to dissect those few sentences. Why now? And more importantly, what could possibly be dark enough to warrant such a theatrical warning from a man who had already thrown everything but the kitchen sink at the couple? Piers Morgan is a master of this game. He understands better than anyone that in the modern age, information is a weapon, but silence is the gunpowder. By providing no images and no leaked documents in that initial blast, he forced the public to become his investigators. He knew that by leaving the details vague, the collective imagination of millions would fill in the blanks with something far more scandalous than any single photograph could ever depict. He sat back and watched as the world began to dig into the name that had remained in the shadows for far too long, Markus Anderson. But as the clock ticked toward his 48-hour deadline, the focus shifted from a potential affair to something much older and much more damaging. To the uninitiated, Markus Anderson might seem like a background character, but to those who followed Meghan's journey from a supporting actress to a global icon, he was a pivotal figure. A Canadian man of Jamaican descent, Markus was the gatekeeper of Soho House, the exclusive chain of private clubs where the world's most powerful artists and billionaires go to disappear. He was the man who held the keys to the kingdom of privacy. Old photographs, some dating back to 2014, were suddenly resurrected from the depths of the internet. In one, Meghan is seen beaming beside Markus at a private party. In another, his hand rests familiarly on her shoulder. At the time, these were dismissed as markers of a close friendship. After all, Markus was the man credited with introducing Meghan to the high society circles of London. But through the distorted lens of this new scandal, every smile felt sinister. Every touch felt like a piece of a puzzle that Harry was never meant to solve. The question that dominated every headline was simple yet devastating. If this was purely a professional bond, why would a veteran journalist risk everything by calling it a dark secret? Why emphasize the wedding ring unless there was a betrayal of the ultimate vow? As the hours turned into days, the atmosphere became suffocating. Public opinion split into two violent camps. One side argued this was another vicious smear campaign, while the other noticed something chilling: Meghan's lightning-fast legal team wasn't filing injunctions. The usual flurry of supportive articles was oddly delayed. The silence from within the walls of the Montecito Villa was the loudest sound in the world. Piers Morgan, acting like a masterful director of a tragedy, waited exactly 48 hours before dropping his second breadcrumb. He stated that he was in no hurry because the truth doesn't run away. He was allowing the pressure to build, allowing the doubt to seep into the cracks of a marriage that had already been tested by the fires of global scrutiny. He understood the power of selective silence, and he was using it to turn a single rumor into a nuclear bomb. But just as the world thought the scandal reached its peak, a voice from the past emerged to turn this affair rumor into a full-scale family tragedy. The second wave of the storm didn't come from a London newsroom, but from the shadows of a fractured family dynamic in Florida. Samantha Markle, the estranged half-sister who had spent years acting as a persistent thorn in the Duchess's side, stepped forward. She didn't come with vague insinuations this time. She brought a series of cutting specific allegations that threatened to dismantle the very foundation of the woman the world thought it knew. Samantha chose her moment with the precision of a predator. Just hours after Markus Anderson was linked to the scandal, she released a meticulously worded post claiming she would no longer remain silent while the world dug into a past she had witnessed firsthand. The central claim was so explosive it caused a momentary silence across the internet. Samantha alleged that when she was only 19 years old, long before she was an actress, Meghan had become pregnant. According to this harrowing account, the young woman had vanished into a state of absolute seclusion for a period of 6 months. Samantha described it as a calculated disappearance, a time when she stayed away from friends, family, and any form of spotlight. The climax of this story was the birth of a baby boy, but the child was not kept. Samantha claimed the infant was surrendered to an older couple for adoption, a decision wrapped in layers of absolute secrecy that had held firm for over 2 decades. This accusation acted like gasoline on an already raging inferno. For years, the public had seen the Duchess as a champion of motherhood. If this story were true, it would strike at the very heart of her modern identity. Samantha didn't stop at the birth. She wove a thread that tied this secret directly back to Markus Anderson. She implied that Markus was not just a recent friend, but an inseparable link to this specific chapter of her life, the keeper of the most dangerous secret in the Markle family history. But to solidify her position, Samantha did something she had never done before she invited the legal wrath of the British monarchy, by naming a specific witness within the palace walls. The name that Samantha Markle dropped next was one that no one expected: Princess Anne. The Princess Royal, known for her stoic nature and her rare involvement in tabloid drama, was suddenly pulled into the center of the vortex. Samantha recounted a story that felt like it belonged in a high-stakes spy novel. She claimed that during the early days of the marriage, Princess Anne had come across an old medical report that had been flagged during the standard vetting process for new members of the family. This report, allegedly bearing Meghan's name, recorded postpartum results with dates that matched perfectly with the year she was 19. Samantha described a clandestine private meeting between herself and the Princess Royal arranged so that Anne could ask the difficult questions that the men in the family were too terrified to voice. According to this account, the princess was visibly shocked by the evidence, but was ultimately overruled by a royal machinery that chose silence to protect the fragile image of the monarchy. This information shifted the entire direction of the storm. It was no longer just about a potential affair in 2026. It was about a legacy of alleged deception reaching back to the 1990s. The public began to wonder if the royal family had known about a hidden child. Did they use it as leverage? Or was the fear of this secret coming out the real reason for the sudden departure to North America in 2020? The internet became a digital crime scene. Amateur sleuths began digging through archives of Toronto newspapers from the mid-90s looking for any mention of an adoption or a young woman matching the description who had vanished for half a year. They looked for connections between the older couple mentioned and the membership director of Soho House. Supporters of the Duchess fired back with ferocity, branding Samantha a fame-seeking liar. Yet even for those who wanted to believe the fairy tale, the specificity of the claims was haunting. To name a specific member of the royal family like Princess Anne was a massive gamble. The public reasoned that no one would dare invite that kind of legal retaliation unless they had something to back it up. As the accusations continued to circulate like a suffocating fog, the silence from Buckingham Palace began to feel like a total institutional collapse. The public was demanding to know why the institution that prides itself on duty and honor was allowing its name to be dragged through the mud of a 30-year-old adoption scandal. The focus of the global media shifted entirely to Princess Anne. For 3 long days, reporters stood in a constant vigil outside her residence, waiting for a sign, a glare, or a single sharp word. They knew Anne was not the type to cower, but they also knew the royal mantra of never complain, never explain was being tested to its breaking point. Within the private corridors of the palace, sources suggested the Princess Royal was incandescent with a cold, righteous rage. On the 4th day, an announcement was made that sent a jolt of electricity through every newsroom in the world. Princess Anne would hold an unexpected press conference at Kensington Palace. This was a move so rare and so entirely unprecedented for a woman of her standing that it signaled the end of the monarchy's passive stance. It was a declaration of war against the rumors. When the heavy doors finally opened, a deafening silence fell over the packed press room. Anne stepped out wearing a sharp navy suit that felt more like a suit of armor than clothing. She did not offer a smile. She did not look for sympathy. Her voice, when it finally broke the silence, was as cold and measured as a winter frost. "I have spent my entire life in the service of this country and this crown," she began. "I do not participate in cover-ups, and I do not allow my name to be used as a convenient pawn in dirty media games." She addressed the allegation of the medical report with terrifying directness, stating clearly that no such document had ever been brought to her attention, and she had never held a clandestine meeting with Samantha Markle. But then she did something no one anticipated. She introduced a guest who had been waiting in the wings, a man named Jonathan Hale. Jonathan Hale was a British director who had worked on various projects during the mid-2000s, a period when the Duchess was still trying to build a career within the United Kingdom. He walked to the podium looking visibly nervous, but his eyes remained clear. He began to recount a story from 2014 when Markus Anderson had reached out to him personally, acting not merely as a club director, but as a high-powered unofficial agent for Meghan Markle. The director described a series of meetings where Markus promised a massive multi-million-dollar investment for Hale's upcoming film project. However, this funding came with a single non-negotiable condition: Meghan Markle must be cast in the lead role. It was a sophisticated pay-to-play scheme that revealed the immense power Markus wielded behind the scenes. Hale admitted to the room that while the actress was talented, she wasn't the right fit for the role. When he suggested a supporting role instead, Markus Anderson's reaction was immediate and fierce. He threatened to pull every penny of the Soho House-based funding if she didn't get exactly what she wanted. It was a level of advocacy that went far beyond professional networking. It was a total devotion to her success. But the most damaging part of the testimony was Hale's description of the chemistry he witnessed between the two. He spoke of seeing them together in the quiet, candle-lit corners of the set and in private lounges. They were intimate in a way that left no room for any other interpretation. He told the stunned room, He described them whispering in the shadows, laughing as if they shared a private language that no one else was permitted to understand. He recalled a specific moment backstage where Markus held her in a way that was far too personal for a business associate. "It was not just a friendship," Hale stated firmly. "It was a partnership that ignored every boundary of the professional world." Princess Anne took back the podium to deliver her final blow. "The royal family does not hide crimes, but we also refuse to participate in the fabrication of legends." While the press room erupted in a frenzy, the focus shifted back to the one man who had been missing from this entire narrative, Prince Harry. While his wife was meeting Markus in LA and his aunt was dismantling the rumors in London, Harry was reportedly on a soul-searching journey in Toronto. Sources claim he was visiting old haunts and speaking to people from Meghan's past, trying to reconcile the woman he loved with the dark secrets being shouted from the rooftops. For a man who had abandoned his home, his family, and his country to protect his wife's honor, the realization that there were chapters of her life he didn't know about must have been a devastating blow. The dream of Montecito was always built on a foundation of absolute trust and a shared us against the world mentality. But as the shivering days of 2026 bled into a new reality, that foundation seemed to be crumbling. If the allegations of a secret child were false, the pay-to-play schemes and the intimate nature of the Markus Anderson connection still remained, casting a long shadow over the authenticity of the Sussex brand. The public was left staring at a fractured image of a woman who had once been a symbol of modern royalty, now accused of hiding a life-altering past. As the sun set over the Pacific, the silence from the Montecito mansion continued. No one knows what was said when Harry finally returned from Canada, or if he even returned at all. The fairy tale that began with a royal wedding in Windsor had transformed into a complex web of mystery and alleged deception. But perhaps the most thought-provoking note of all isn't whether the rumors are true, it's whether the trust can ever be rebuilt once the world has seen the cracks in the armor. Was Harry looking for a way to save his family? Or was he searching for the final reason to let it all go? The story of the British monarchy has always been one of survival. But as we move further into 2026, it seems the most controversial branch might finally be facing a storm they can't outrun. The question remains, in the game of secrets and shadows, who is the real architect of the story? And what happens when the architect decides to walk away?